2024 was a big year for indie games. The industry faced wave after wave of layoffs early in the year, causing delays and outright cancellations of a lot of major AAA games. Concord was in development for 8 years and then shut down in 2 weeks. Alan Wake 2, despite being about as big as a game can be, still hasn't recouped its costs. A new game in the popular Deus Ex franchise was canceled after 2 years of development alongside dozens of other anticipated titles. People have long talked about how unsustainable AAA game production is, specifically the amount of time and money that gets poured into projects that might not ever turn a profit. And those predictions saw fruition this year. Indie studios haven't fared much better, but they have fared quieter and less visibly. Basically, the bag holders are spooked, and it's harder than ever to get funding. But like mushrooms proliferating after a forest fire, indie games have had more visibility than ever in 2024. Without a frontier choked with high marketing budgets, small, weird experiences have become mega successes. And my Game of the Year list reflects that. First off, I have 2 honorable mentions. What the Car? What the Car is one of the funniest games I've ever played. It would have been in my top 3, but it technically came out on Apple Arcade last year. But you should still absolutely play it. It's truly a car that's a goat. Shadow of the Erdtree. There's been a lot of fuss about whether a DLC can be eligible for Game of the Year, and that's because of Shadow of the Erdtree. It was notably not eligible for any BAFTA Game Awards because those are for full games only. It's case by case for me, and it really depends on how big and noteworthy the DLC is. Erdtree was either a massive DLC or a small sequel. And for my money, literally, I think it counts for Game of the Year running. But it's not on my top 10 list, and it's through no fault of its own. I played so much of it in such a short span of time that I hurt my thumb and had to go to a real human doctor and look them in the face as they said that I have a syndrome called gamer thumb. And I never went back and finished it. So all my top 10 spots went to games that didn't disable me. Number 10, Pepper Grinder. Drill and swing through sand and snow and ash in Pepper Grinder, a fast-paced, serpentine platformer. Pepper Grinder is an iconic example of the modern indie game trends I like the most. It's compact, with engaging gameplay, Souls-like boss elements, and minor hair customizations. The game suffers for how short it is, but that's only because I really wanted to keep swinging around more levels and puzzling through more bosses. Number 9, Cryptmaster. As someone who learned to type under the powerful feminine tutelage of Mavis Beacon, it was fun to return to the world of typing gameplay in Cryptmaster. The eponymous necromancer has resurrected your party to aid him in returning to the surface. Only you've forgotten everything, including your former abilities. Through gaining letters and guessing words, you'll fill out your dictionary of powers. It's satisfying to puzzle out new words and earn bits of backstory about your terrible party along the way. The character of the Cryptmaster, both in writing and performance, is what makes this game stand out. He has an incredible depth of programmed, pre-recorded responses, thoughtfully targeting the most obvious words, your farts and butts and what have, while cleverly parsing words it doesn't have a built-in response for. The real satisfaction is hearing the somewhat prissy Cryptmaster scolding you for saying penis.
What a filthy mind you have.
8. Home Safety Hotline. In Home Safety Hotline, you help callers determine if that weird sound in their house is mice, a bad foundation, or an evil gremlin that will eat their whole family. You have to puzzle out which menace is afflicting your client, who has of course provided only the vaguest description of their problem. This issue will be familiar to anybody who has worked in customer service before. The puzzles in HSA are thoughtfully composed to lead you right up to the solution without making it totally obvious. 2024 was a big year for retro horror games, and Home Safety Hotline is an interesting take on that concept. Retro in presentation, but very modern in gameplay. The art and audio effects feel true to the throwback Microsoft 95 interface, while also lending a lot of spookiness. It's hard to define what makes something cozy horror, but much like pornography, I know it when I play it. Home Safety Hotline has a lot of unexpected charm for a game that makes you work in a call center. Number 7, Grun. In Grun, you're a gardener tasked with cleaning up hedges and watering plants, but thankfully that doesn't take too long, because there are way cooler things to do, like travel interdimensionally, cheer on a snail, and calm down some ghosts. Sock Pop Collective has quietly put out dozens of games thanks to a magazine subscription-style funding model. Every month, a new game. Grun might be their biggest yet in terms of reception, and it's clear why. It marries the funny logic of a point-and-click mystery with the knowledge empowerment of a time loop game. The puzzle progression is incredible, while still keeping the gameplay tight. In a single run, you might buy a key that lets you access a computer, that reveals an apple that gets you a worm that will have dire consequences on anything you expose it to. The next step in the chain of events is always clear, without ever really spoiling where you'll end up. And you never know where you'll end up in Grun. Number 6. Sorry, We're Closed. In Sorry, We're Closed, the ordeal of being known moves past mortifying into full-blown horror. Michelle has attracted the attention of the Duchess, a demon of love, and now she has to fight her way out of a curse, or perhaps allow herself to be consumed. 2024 was a big year for retro horror games, and Sorry We're Closed is like the queer answer to Silent Hill. Grungy, gay, and horrific. For people embedded in very heteronormative communities, it probably feels realistic to play a game where there's maybe 2 gays, 1 boy gay and 1 girl gay. It doesn't feel like tokenism. But playing a game like Sorry We're Closed, which is unabashedly full tilt queer as fuck, feels somehow closer to reality for me than most games. If you're queer, then your community probably does look closer to Sorry We're Closed. Mostly gay, lots of trans and genderqueer people, and more than a few demons. The character art, level design, and writing in Sorry We're Closed are all gorgeous. This game will force you to consider the inevitable change that comes with loving and being loved, and whether it's worthwhile after all. Number 5, Crow Country. Explore a spooky theme park to uncover the mystery of its origins, why it's shut down, and why it's full of monsters now. This isn't some slapdash zombie virus game. The lore of Crow Country is surprisingly deep, and the reveals are perfectly paced with the gameplay to make a very compelling experience. 2024 was a big year for retro horror games, and some of us had a great year because of it. But Crow Country was by far the most successful in pairing throwback style with modern gameplay sensibilities. The game is packed with little improvements over the retro origins, like a dynamically updating map. Thoughtful updates like this clear the way for players to enjoy the puzzles, exploration, and smart writing. Number 4, Thank Goodness You're Here! The most British game ever made. Thank Goodness You're Here is an absurd comedy adventure. Play a little guy in a big world waiting for your appointment with the mayor by faffing about town. From the voice acting, to the framing and staging of scenes, to the writing, this game squeezed every bit of comedy into a tidy little glass for you to drink, and then it dumps it over your head instead. Number 3, Arctic Eggs. 2024 was a big year for egg games, and I loved all of them. Between psychological horror gambler Egg Squeeze, delicate platformer Foul Damage, and Arctic Eggs was my favorite. You're a chef in Antarctica attempting to escape by feeding the Saint of Six Stomachs with your incredible egg-flipping skills and skillet. But the residents aren't making it easy for you to practice. Bullets knock your eggs out, cigarettes time your cooking, and ice melts before you can sunny side up the yolks. The dreamy atmosphere and cutting script are complemented by simple but supremely engaging gameplay. You just wiggle. You wiggle the pan enough to get it cooking, but not so much that everything flips out. I loved this mechanic so much that I instituted a Pizza Ray challenge on my live streams, in which I attempted to cook a pizza and a stingray at the same time. It was really hard and dumb, and it felt amazing to nail it. Number 2, Mouthwashing. A long-haul freighter spaceship is dead in the stars after an accident, leaving its crew to face the inevitability of their fate. The horror of mouthwashing is operating on so many levels: psychological torment, body horror, surreal trips, the cold inhumanity of capitalism. There are cheap jump scares and visceral high-concept terrors. A common line of thought is that games are power fantasies, and that horror games invert that fantasy by making you essentially powerless, an everyman. Mouthwashing takes it a step further and gives you all of the power. You're the captain now, congrats! And then makes you use it in the cruelest, most demented ways possible. Mouthwashing is like if The Terror were a game, and it made you play as Cornelius Hickey. Mouthwashing tackles some intense themes, and I would recommend a content warning check before playing it. But it is thoughtful and complex in its approach, surprisingly sensitive and compassionate towards its victims, while completely remorseless in its plotting. It will force you to think about things that we should probably all be considering more often, like who's responsible for monstrous behavior, and how much blame lies with those who enable it. Oh, and 2024 was a big year for Erdtree. Number 1, my game of the year, Indika. Indika isn't a very good nun. She is filled with doubts and also hallucinations, which make it hard for her to practice full religious devotion. After being semi-abducted by Ilya, the two embark on a journey in search of a miracle, but maybe the miracle was their relationship. No, it wasn't. As I was sitting down to write this blurb for Indika, I realized I simply have too much to say about it. I played it months ago, but instead of slipping out of my mind, it's just wormed its way deeper into my brain. Much like Mouthwashing, and like all of my favorite art, Indika challenged and unsettled me, and left me with the kind of feelings that linger because they're unresolved. So I'm working on a separate video about Indika and its themes and why they are so unique in gaming, but as a result, this blurb is a little sad and short and doesn't have any information about why Indika is my game of the year. But keep an eye out for that video, subscribe now, it'll be out soon. Car that's a goat.